most shocking thing your child with selective mutism has ever said. My autistic son Michael communicates by writing notes and pointing, so when I heard him talking fluently at 3 a.m., I thought someone had broken into our apartment. He hasn't spoken more than 10 words at a time since his father walked out 3 years ago. Whenever we need to order food, he writes down exactly what he wants and slides the paper across the table for me to call. Last month, I lost my job at Walmart, and we were facing eviction from our cramped apartment above the Chinese restaurant. I was sitting at our kitchen table with bills spread out like a losing poker hand when Michael walked through the living room, saw my face crumpled over those numbers, grabbed his backpack without a word, and disappeared into his room. That night, I heard him moving around at 3 in the morning, but his usual hand flapping and pacing had stopped. He was talking, but the voice coming through his door was smooth, confident, completely different. My hands started shaking as I pressed my ear against the wood. Morgan Freeman's voice was discussing audiobook narration rates. Then Samuel L. Jackson's voice was negotiating voice acting contracts. Then a perfect David Attenborough was explaining the migration patterns of Arctic terns. The next morning, his recording equipment was gone from his desk. The cheap microphone and laptop setup I'd bought him for his birthday, thinking he might use it for school projects. I figured someone had broken in and stolen it, which was just perfect, because that equipment was the only thing that made him light up anymore. One more thing stripped away from a kid who'd already lost too much. I was about to file a police report when the restaurant owner from downstairs knocked on my door. Your boy, he's been going to the community center every morning at sunrise, she said in her broken English. He sits in that little recording booth they have, talks to himself for hours. I drove over there expecting to find him having some kind of breakdown, maybe talking to imaginary friends. Instead, I found Michael in the soundproof booth, speaking in a voice that wasn't his own. He was doing a commercial read in the exact voice of that guy from the insurance commercials, his words flowing like water, no tension in his shoulders, hands resting calmly on the desk. Then he switched to a gravelly narrator voice, reading what looked like a novel excerpt, and his entire posture shifted forward, becoming the character. The same kid who crossed his arms and rocked back and forth when teachers called on him was performing like a professional voice actor. When he finished, he loaded his recordings onto a USB drive and walked to the library. I followed at a distance and watched him upload files to some website, responding to messages, negotiating rates through online chat. Michael walked away with confirmation emails for 3 different voice acting jobs and immediately returned to the community center to record more. By the time he dragged himself home that evening, he winced every time he swallowed and his voice cracked when he tried to clear his throat. He was exhausted, but his eyes were bright and focused instead of that distant stare I'd grown used to. He went straight to his room without explanation. That night, I found $400 in cash tucked under my laptop with a note written in his careful handwriting. For the rent. I have more bookings tomorrow. I confronted him the next morning, demanding to know how he'd been making money with his voice when he could barely speak to me. He looked at me with those intense eyes that always saw too much and shrugged. Different brain muscles. He pulled out a notebook filled with character voices, rate sheets, and client usernames. One page read, Batman equals gravel plus whisper. Another, Elmo equals breathe through nose. And a third, Morgan Freeman equals honey slow. He pointed to a page where he'd written, Michael equals stuck. Characters equals free. I asked him how long he'd been doing this. 3 weeks, he said, then hesitated before adding 15 clients. He started to walk away, then turned back and said quietly, not broken, Mom, just borrowing voices. That morning, I woke up at 5 and made him throat tea, packed lozenges, and filled a thermos with warm lemon water. When his alarm went off, I was already standing by the door with a better microphone and a portable recording setup. What are you doing? He asked, his head tilting to the side, eyebrows scrunched together in that way that meant he was processing something unexpected. I figured you could use a sound engineer today, and maybe some help managing your bookings. For the first time in 3 years, Michael smiled. In a perfect Morgan Freeman voice, he said, well, I'll be damned.